there is sort of like a new protocol for the future of the internet where things get federated and broken down into like much smaller components, and agents are like constantly exposing and using different tools, and authentication, payment, data transfer, it's all like built in at this level that everybody trusts. Everything can talk to everything. I don't quite think we know what that looks like, but it's like coming out of the fog. And as we get a better sense for that, again, it'll probably take us like a few iterations toward that to get there, but that's kind of where I would like to see things go.
Sam Altman just gave a talk at the AI Ascent event at Sequoia. Sequoia, the famed VC firm out of Silicon Valley. And he talks about AI coding, he talks about agents, he talks about what young people should focus on in a world where AI seems to be taking over everything. So let's watch, I'll give you my thoughts. In this first segment, he talks about where he sees OpenAI in the landscape of the future of computing architecture. And he has ambitious goals, but at the same time, he kind of contradicts himself. Of course, he wants engineers to build on top of OpenAI, but in the same sentence, he talks about how OpenAI is going to be the core AI subscription for your life and is going to be available on many different platforms. So it really doesn't leave a lot of room for other companies, entrepreneurs, to build confidently on top of OpenAI without feeling that platform risk. So let's watch, I'll give you my thoughts.
You're building small models and large models. You're doing a lot of things, as you said. So how do this audience stay out of your ways and not be roadkill?
I mean, I think the way to model us is we want to be people's like core AI subscription and way to use that thing. Some of that will be like what you do inside of ChatGPT. We'll have a couple of other kind of like really key parts of that subscription. But mostly, we will hopefully build this smarter and smarter model. We'll have these surfaces like future devices, future things that are sort of similar to operating systems, whatever.
All right, I just want to pause it because he glossed over that and he just said it so quickly and in such a nonchalant way. Let me replay it just in case you missed it.
And smarter model will have these surfaces like future devices, future things that are sort of similar to operating systems, whatever.
Whatever. So essentially what he's saying is he really sees artificial intelligence and OpenAI's role in AI being the operating system layer of the future of computing. And that is a huge deal. And that's actually very attractive as a startup founder to go build on top of. Imagine you're one of the first people to figure out that mobile was going to be the next big thing, iOS and Android. Imagine even before that with the internet, you were one of the first websites on the internet, or even one of the first pieces of software on Windows or Mac. But here's the thing, AI can do everything. It's not just a platform. It can actually accomplish things on top of that core intelligence layer. Now, OpenAI as an intelligence provider, as a model builder and inference provider would be awesome. But they are already doing so much more than that. They have the UI with ChatGPT. They're making apps for every existing platform, and they are eyeing being the operating system in the future. So again, and I've talked a lot about this on this channel, platform risk is real. So as the interviewer asked, how do entrepreneurs build things in AI yet not get run over by OpenAI in the process? All right, let's keep watching.
We have not yet figured out exactly, I think, what the sort of API or SDK or whatever you want to call it is to like really be our platform, but we will. It may take us a few tries, but we will. And I hope that enables like just an unbelievable amount of wealth creation in the world and other people to build onto that. But yeah, we're going to go for like the core AI subscription and the model, and then the kind of core surfaces, and there will be a ton of other stuff to build.
All right, so he explicitly said they haven't figured out the API as a platform yet, which is interesting to me because it seems to me like they really did figure it out and it's very reliable. It is the go-to API for a lot of people. But if he hasn't figured it out and they're wanting to be the core AI subscription for people, by the way, I think that is a really tight rope to walk. On the one hand, you want to be front and center in front of consumers and businesses, the core AI subscription. But at the same time, you're trying to attract developers to build on top of you. So you're a platform. Every major tech company is a platform. Meta, Google, Amazon, all of them. They are all platforms that have attracted developers to build on top of them. Remember Steve Ballmer, developers. That is what makes a company super powered and grows the moat substantially. But again, it's very different with AI, and it's very different with OpenAI wanting to be the core AI subscription, but at the same time, the platform. Thanks to the sponsor of this video, Gamma. Gamma allows you to easily create presentations, web pages, and documents by simply just typing out what you want in a prompt. I gave it a try creating a PowerPoint presentation that I needed to make, and it was really good. After you're done using AI to create your first draft, you can go in and edit anything you want through their awesome editor. And after you're done creating, you can easily export it to PDF, PowerPoint, Google Docs, basically anything. And if you're working on a team, you can import your own branding, collaborate live, and share themes. And they just made major updates to their UI, so it is lightning fast. So if you're still creating presentations by hand, you need to give Gamma a try. Check it out. I'll drop all the links in the description below. Thanks again to Gamma. Now back to the video.
So don't be the core AI subscription, but you can do everything else.
We're going to try. I mean, if you can make a better Core AI subscription offering than us, go ahead. That'd be great.
Yeah, but that's not true. If you build a better core AI subscription, which by the way is totally possible, OpenAI right now is certainly in the lead, and they definitely have some of the best models, but there are a lot of other great models out there. And technically, but here's where it gets tricky, you can take one of OpenAI's models and build a better core AI service. But of course, what prevents them from coming and just either taking what you've done or crushing you? Nothing at all. So just be very wary. If you're a builder, you're watching this video, be very wary about becoming too dependent on any one model provider. All right, and later in the video, but I'm gonna put this right after this section, Sam Altman is asked, okay, well, if most of the revenue comes from the consumer subscriptions, plus their vision is to become the core consumer application, why even keep the API? Which is a good question, and he has an interesting answer. Let's watch.
So most of your revenue comes from consumer subscriptions. Why keep the API in 10 years?
I really hope that all of this merges into one thing. Like, you should be able to sign in with OpenAI to other services. Other services should have an incredible SDK to like take over the ChatGPT UI at some point. But like, to the degree that you are going to have a personalized AI that knows you, that has your information, that knows what you want to share later, and has all this context on you, you'll want to be able to use that in a lot of places. Now, I agree that the current version of the API is very far off that vision, but I think we can get there.
Yeah, I'm not sure he really answered the question all that well. The API is great, but honestly, all of the things he discussed, logging in with OpenAI, allowing other companies to take over the interface of ChatGPT, all of these things are kind of the old way of the internet, and old, not that old, but definitely the kind of more traditional way of thinking about it pre-AI. And I think that there's going to be new, completely different ways of interacting with AI and allowing AI to interact with other services on your behalf. I don't know what it is. I don't have the answer, but it just seems like logging in with ChatGPT, allowing your agent to interact with the SDK, it just seems dated. All right, next, an audience member asks him what big companies are getting wrong about transforming their organization with AI. And a lot of companies are getting it wrong right now. Klarna made a huge push to automate a lot of their business, and just this week announced a bunch of rollbacks on those different technologies because we're assuming it didn't work out all that well for them. But let's see what Sam Altman has to say.
What do you think the larger companies are getting wrong about transforming their organizations to be more AI native in terms of both using the tooling as well as producing products? It's been, it's smaller companies are clearly just beating the crap out of larger ones when it comes to innovation here.
I think this basically happens every major tech revolution. There's nothing to me surprising about it. The thing that they're getting wrong is the same thing they always get wrong, which is like, people get incredibly stuck in their ways. Organizations get incredibly stuck in their ways. If things are changing a lot every quarter or two, and you have like an information security council that meets once a year to decide what applications you're going to allow and what it means to like put data into a system, like it's so painful to watch what happens here. But like, this is creative destruction. This is why startups win. This is like how the industry moves forward. I'd say I feel like disappointed but not surprised at the rate that big companies are willing to do this.
This is the classic innovator's dilemma. Big companies get stuck in their ways. They have their cash cows and they are either unwilling or unable to change at the pace that they need to change. I thought that was going to happen to Google, to be frank. They invented the best business in history. The Google search business with advertising is the best money printing business that has ever existed in the history of the world. So, of course, I thought they were going to be stuck and focused on that and protect their moat at all costs. But it seems like they're actually changing a lot faster than I thought they would. AI mode is now available. They're coming out with some of the best models. Obviously, they're still protecting their golden goose, but they're changing quickly. A lot of other companies are going to be stuck in that innovator's dilemma. But what about non-innovative companies? What about just regular companies that are looking to adopt AI to transform their business for the better? A big problem that I'm seeing is that they're thinking about, how do we automate the things that we already do? Which, by the way, great question to ask. But I think it's so much more than that. It's more than just, let's take what we're doing already and figure out how to automate it or do more of it. I think what companies need to think about is, what haven't we been able to do because we don't have the resources that we now can do with artificial intelligence? That's the real question. What projects, what tasks, what initiatives can we take on with the same team that previously would have seemed impossible? Certainly automate the tasks you're already doing, but think more in the future. What is the vision? What do you want to accomplish that previously was not possible? And continuing on this point, I think both consumers and businesses are trying to figure out how to use AI and fit it into the structure that we've been used to in our lives, whatever that is. And this seems to happen with every new technology. The internet is a great example. When the internet first came out, everybody thought, great, let's take newspapers and magazines and put them on the web so people can read them. They didn't even think about the native interactivity of the internet available to them. They didn't think about the social aspect. They didn't think about any of that because it just hadn't been done before. They thought, okay, let's take what worked before and adapt this new technology to it, rather than thinking, what is the native form factor of this new technology? Now let's create things within that frame of reference. All right, in this next section, he muses on the difference between how a 20-year-old and a 35-year-old is using artificial intelligence and how vastly different it is. And it's very interesting to hear him describe it. So if you're not a 20-something, pay attention to this, because this could be a way to use artificial intelligence that you're not already thinking of.
Maybe you talk to an average 20-year-old and watch how they use ChatGPT. And then you go talk to an average 35-year-old and how they use it or some other service. And the difference is unbelievable. It reminds me of when the smartphone came out. And every kid was able to use it super well, and older people just took 3 years to figure out how to do basic stuff. And then of course people integrate, but the sort of generational divide on AI tools right now is crazy, and I think companies are just another symptom of that.
Just to follow up on that, what are the cool use cases that you're seeing young people using with ChatGPT that might surprise us?
They really do use it like an operating system. They have complex ways to set it up to connect it to a bunch of files, and they have fairly complex prompts memorized in their head, or in something where they paste in and out, and that stuff I think is all cool and impressive. And there's this other thing where they don't really make life decisions without asking ChatGPT what they should do.
Yeah, by the way, I do this. Major, difficult, or complex decisions in my life, I'm using ChatGPT to help me think through it. I'm not saying, hey, make this decision for me, but all of these AI tools can really help you think through it in a very clear way. I think a good analogy to this is a pros and cons list, which is very manual, and it's actually very useful when thinking about difficult decisions. But imagine AI as your pros and cons list, except it can give you insights and new ways to think about that difficult decision that you may not have thought of. So definitely use it in that way.
And it has the full context on every person in their life and what they've talked about. And, the memory thing has been a real change there. But yeah, I think it gross oversimplification, but older people use ChatGPT as a Google replacement. Maybe people in their 20s and 30s use it as a life advisor or something, and then people in college use it as an operating system.
I think I need to do better with using AI as an operating system. I definitely use it obviously all day, every day. This is my job. But I think I need to give it more information about my life. I need to allow it to use those memories more effectively. And that's the operating system he's talking about. The next section is about AI voice and how important voice is as an interaction layer for artificial intelligence and consumers. And of course, it's incredibly important. And he admits they haven't nailed it yet. But what he says, again, kind of hints at what he sees as the vision of the future of OpenAI and how they are going to be the computing platform of the future.
Hi, Sam. I was really excited to play with the voice model in the playground. And so I have two questions. The first is, how important is voice to OpenAI in terms of like stack ranking for infrastructure? And can you share a little bit about how you think it'll show up in the product and ChatGPT, the core thing?
I think voice is extremely important. Honestly, we have not made a good enough voice product yet. That's fine. Like, it took us a while to make a good enough text model too. We will crack that code eventually. And when we do, I think a lot of people are going to want to use voice interaction a lot more. I am super... When we first launched our current voice mode, the thing that was most interesting to me was it was a new stream on top of like the touch interface. And you could talk and be like clicking around on your phone at the same time. And I continue to think there's something amazing to do about like voice plus GUI interaction that we have not cracked. But before that, we'll just make voice really great. And when we do, I think there's not only is it cool with existing devices, but I sort of think voice will enable a totally new class of devices if you can make it feel like truly human level voice.
All right, so Sam Altman is really revealing his hand a bit here. This is all speculation, but what I really think is going on is, remember him and Johnny Ive were rumored to be working together to create a new device, an AI native device. And if you're not familiar with Johnny Ive, he is the brilliant designer between basically all of the Apple products of the last 20 plus years. And so I definitely agree. Voice is going to be the primary input device of the future, but it is interesting to think about voice plus some kind of interaction with a graphical user interface. And I kind of use it like that already. When I take out voice mode on ChatGPT, I'm pointing my camera at things, I'm reading, I'm clicking around and doing other things at the same time. And it's a bit painful right now. There's a lot of friction in the process, but it's only going to get better. So I agree with his assessment of the value of the voice interaction layer of the future. In this next section, somebody asks whether Sam Altman sees code as another vertical application of AI or something special, something unique.
Is coding just another vertical application, or is it more central to the future of OpenAI?
That one's more central to the future of OpenAI. Right now, if you ask ChatGPT a response, you get text back, maybe you get an image. You would like to get a whole program back. You would like, custom rendered code for every response, or at least I would. You would like the ability for these models to go make things happen in the world. And writing code, I think, will be very central to how you actuate the world and call a bunch of APIs or whatever. So I would say coding will be more in a central category. We'll obviously expose it through our API and our platform as well. But ChatGPT should be excellent at writing code.
All right. So yes, code is something special because code is the language of agents. Agents that can interact on your behalf, agents that can use the browser, use your computer. All of these things can happen because agents can write code dynamically in real time when it's needed. And beyond that, there is this interaction that I can imagine where you ask your agent for something and you get back a full interactive application rather than just some text answer. And that brings us back to, is SaaS dead, right? We've talked about that a lot on this channel. And if agents are creating all of these applications in real time, where do the traditional SaaS applications live? It just doesn't seem like there's a lot of use for them. And of course, Satya Nadella famously said, all of the applications are being collapsed down into agents. So it's very interesting to think about, something to consider. All right, next, Sam is going to be asked about where he thinks the value creation is going to be over the next 12 months. So if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a startup founder, pay attention. Listen to this.
I mean, in some sense, the value will continue to come from really three things, like building out more infrastructure, smarter models, and building the kind of scaffolding to integrate this stuff into society. And if you push on those, I think the rest will sort itself out.
Scaffolding. That's where I'm especially interested in, and I make some investments. And that's for a few reasons. One, the AI infrastructure build out started years ago. So if you weren't part of that initial wave, it's very difficult to get in now. Number two, the model intelligence layer is kind of the same thing. These companies were formed years ago. So if you're not in them as an investor already or a founder, it's very hard to start right now. But the scaffolding is currently being built out, whether that's memory management, security, agentic frameworks, tool use, all of these things that go around the core intelligence of the models. That's the current gold rush right now, at least in my opinion.
At a higher level of detail, I kind of think 2025 will be a year of sort of agents doing work. Coding in particular, I would expect to be a dominant category. I think there'll be a few others too. Next year is a year where I would expect more like a sort of AIs discovering new stuff, and maybe we have AIs make some very large scientific discoveries or assist humans in doing that. And I am kind of a believer that most of the sort of real sustainable economic growth in human history comes from, once you've like kind of spread out and colonized the earth, most of it comes from just better scientific knowledge and then implementing that for the world. And then 27, I would guess, is the year where like that all moves from the sort of intellectual realm to the physical world, and robots go from a curiosity to like a serious economic creator of value.
All right, so this year is all about agents. We're already seeing that. 26 is all about scientific discovery being done by AI, which really leads to self-improving AI. And then 27, intelligence becoming embodied in the form of robots, and serious, economically valuable robots. I actually think robots are a little bit further off, but otherwise the timeline seems pretty accurate to me. All right, so that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.